Hi guys, I would like to start my presentation on deconstructing the cyber kill chain of Angular exploit kit. Before I start, just how many people are familiar with what are exploit kits? Okay, how many of you heard about Angular? Oh, great. Okay, so I started a little about myself. I originally came from Eastern Europe, Belarus. I moved to San Francisco about 6 years ago. Back in home, I was a student of Belarusian National Technical University, and I was getting my degree in computer science. Currently working on my associate science degree from City College, and I got most of their cybersecurity certificates already completed. Also looking forward into data analysis and algorithmization since I started working in OpenDNS, where we deal with a huge amount of DNS traffic. Currently, with all our 26 data centers, we handle about 100 billion of DNS queries a day. And that's what we build our security controls on. However, it's not that easy when you think about 5 petaflops of data you have to go through in just one single day. So I will talk about Angular, tell you about when it started, how it looked when it just started. Why do I draw the parallels and call it APT in bigger scale? Usually you hear APT only about small networks, companies, or just specific targets. Break down the cyber kill chain of this campaign. Talk about money flow, because for the last couple of years, Angular was primarily distributing ransomware, which is a huge amount of money, but they all come in Bitcoins, and to get the cash from Bitcoins is pretty challenging. What we do in OpenDNS to detect and prevent this stuff. So any exploit kit is a set of payloads or exploits built in one solution. That's why it's all powerful. So you have your management console, you have some kind of imported data for the stuff that you will exploit. In this case, usually those are domains or just the web pages where you can inject stuff. Angular in particular haven't been known for a while. I didn't heard about it until 2013, but building and making the research on where it come from, I came across the blog post from Sergey Golovanov, which is a security researcher from Kaspersky, who mentioned it in 2012 in case where the biggest news portals of Russia and Ukraine were spreading those fileless bots malware that almost impossible to detect. It doesn't leave any kind of evidence on the system. It does what it needs, and it self-destroys. Second mention of it came from Caffeine, who is a US-based exploit researcher, really great guy. I follow him on Twitter. He does an amazing job analyzing payloads and exploit kits in particular. So he saw some of these payloads using those fileless capabilities as early as August 2013, but he didn't pay too much attention on it until the black hole takedown. After the black hole was taken down in October 2013, a lot of malware authors were looking for like another exploit, and that's where the Angular came in play. And after analyzing that and analyzing the way Angular works, we can see that it started all the way in 2010, and it's called XXX on the underground forums. It was Caffeine who gave it its name, and that's what we know now as Angular. So why do I build this cyber kill chain and deconstruct it? Because usually like before, we used to tell about APT only when you target something. You want to achieve persistence in some network, a company network or something else. However, if you look at the internet, it's the same network, just huge scale. So I think that Angular authors and the people behind it did a great job. They're super persistent. There were an enormous amount of researchers spending a huge amount of time finding their C2 servers, blocking them, taking them down. However, it's still there. It's very advanced. It uses advanced techniques on all stages of campaign. If you talk about payloads, the most newest CVEs are implemented. We've seen that Java vulnerability would be disclosed publicly. 3 days later, they would have exploit for it. Implementing honeypot and antivirus avoidance. We've been doing a lot of honeypot projects to try to catch all that stuff, and we didn't see any of Angular. Why? Because they were pretty sophisticated. They would penetrate your network, see that, oh, that's probably not a real PC, there is no reason to infect it, so they just don't drop the final payload. After we figure out the schema that they use to build URLs, and we can build a pattern for it and block it as soon as we see something that looks like that pattern, they change it. They switch to domain shadowing, which is a lot more advanced technique, but it requires additional steps for the malware people to get to the domain accounts. All the payloads that are delivered by Angular are either highly obfuscated or encrypted. And this way, for antiviruses, it's super hard to decrypt every single package or every single stuff that they cut. They are obfuscated, and they are becoming pretty much useless. Persistent, as I already told, in October 2015, Talos took down the infrastructure that was delivering Angular and dropped almost 90% of its traffic. But 4 months later, we've seen it came back to the same, if even not bigger traffic. And it's definitely a threat. How many of you didn't hear about ransomware? None, right? Everybody knows what is it, where it's coming from, but nobody knows how to protect them from it, right? If you don't have, before when I used not to care much about my backups, when I seen that, oh my God, I was terrified. Now all my backups, I have 3 of them now, and I keep just backing up all my sensitive data every week. However, besides ransomware, when you already have the infrastructure, you can deliver whatever you want. If you want to make extra buck, you just rent out your infrastructure to other malware guys, right? So Talos, using OpenDNS data, find out at least 3 emails that were associated with different actors delivering BDIP, hosting Angular, hosting Lurk, and delivering different payloads like Tinba and Necrostrike Trojan. So with that, I would like to break down the cyber kill chain of it. If you talk about APT, it's a lot bigger, and you can break it down to even smaller parts. Here, I combine some steps together just because they happen either like simultaneously or one right after another. So I came to the Reconnaissance, exploitation and weaponization, delivery and installation, command and control, and actions. So Reconnaissance, for any APT or any malware campaign, this is very important because you want to have some base infrastructure that's protected from everybody else. Because if you lost that basic infrastructure, you're pretty much toast, like all your business is broken. And with Angular, we see that those people don't really afraid to lose it. Sometimes they expose it, but the reason is pretty simple because they are unreachable. Most of the basic infrastructure are located in Eastern Europe, countries like Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine. So even if FBI can go and ask, please take down this infrastructure, most of the people in these countries wouldn't care about it that much. That's one of the reasons that let ransomwares grow and spread. For domain registers, for domain shadowing, they have to have domain registrant accounts. Of course, you can put up a bunch of fake accounts for yourself and use them just one time, but with domain shadowing, you defeat something like popularity check. And if you register your domain a couple days ago and you want to route a huge amount of traffic to it, it would flag immediately in many security appliances and you wouldn't deliver anything. They also used a lot of bulletproof hosting, which are pretty common. They're not that huge amount of them, but they still exist. Those are just companies who can host anything and they don't really care what you do with it, as long as you pay them money. Abuse large providers. We've seen a lot of traffic going through like GoDaddy and other big providers, but that doesn't mean that they're bad. It's hard for them to handle all that enormous amount of domains they are offering to people. Also, the primal way the Angler delivered their initial payload are advertising companies. It became possible because a lot of companies want to maximize their income. So they are participating in something that they call ad hopping or ad exchange. So if you have an advertising company and you target a specific region, let's say Australia, and another company wants to advertise in Australia, they don't want to beating with you for the traffic. They just offered you a deal. Okay, let us run my advertising through your infrastructure for 5 days, and I'll let you do the same. So for this, people behind Angler register fake advertising companies. If you look them up on the internet, they look just like any other advertising company, except all they do are delivering Angler payloads. So that's how I broke down the recon. That's the steps that you need to make initial to launch your campaign. Not talking about any payloads yet, just gathering the information. So, dedicated infrastructure used to get those domain registrant emails. How it was done? It was pretty simple. All unsophisticated technique phishing. They gathered a bunch of domain registrant emails, sent them phishing emails. Most of them would answer because most of the companies don't really think that DNS registrant email is something important, is something that can be used against them. And Angler people changed that a lot. Now everybody have to implement any kind of control for their DNS records. They're becoming really, really valuable. So after the phishing campaign finished, they got some amount of the accounts. That let them build their initial infrastructure to actually launch the campaign where they would deliver ransomware. So for the exploitation, those are the websites that would deliver the initial payload. What we've seen breaking down to the parts, and we've seen that most of them are coming from the WordPress and domain shadowing. WordPress domains, a lot of people not updating their WordPress regularly, that's why it's exposed to all kinds of threats. If you have a domain that's using WordPress, how often do you go through your logs? Not that often, but we've been doing analysis on that, and WordPress sites got hits every day, sometimes from multiple resources. Those are scanners at big scales that run every day, both from good guys and bad guys as well. So with the very beginning of the campaign, the amount of the abused or compromised websites is pretty low. Most of them would be delivered using domain shadowing and dedicated servers, but at the point where we're analyzing them right now, most of that shifting to the compromised domains. Those are CVEs that we've seen being used for the past 90 days. The smallest one, which is the very bottom, it's the Silverlight exploit. It just popped up and become pretty popular. I think we will see the growing of it more and more, just because people get used that Java get exploited a lot. People get used that some other technologies getting exploited a lot. And it's not because those technologies are weak or bad. No, it's because they implement it everywhere. So that's what you target. You know that almost any PC would have the Java installed, but not any PC would have a Silverlight. Now, with Microsoft pushing all this crappy stuff on your PCs when you don't even know what's going on your box, especially with Windows 10, that's becoming bigger and bigger problem. And not all the people know that they need to update Silverlight. I don't even know what it's used for. So, and malware guys, pretty clever. They know that and they use it. So, initial exploitation take place where you want to defeat and build your initial infrastructure. So they exploit WordPress, Joomla, whatever sites to build the initial redirect. But with the exploitation of the actual PC, the very end payload can be broken to those. Tesla crypt is big hit. Before we used to defeat Tesla crypt because it used a no IP call. It was really easy to detect. We implement control that would check for it and break exploitation chain at that place. It was really great, suddenly disappeared. Why? Okay, we put it on a blog post. Those guys know how to search internet. They find out that we know about that. They change it. Now, no IP call is removed, so our control became useless. Other ransomware families, CryptoWall, Hydra Crypt, and I think they shifting to CryptoWall version 4 recently. So I think blue part will grow bigger and bigger. Before we've seen delivering some Trojans like Bubtrack and Timba, but doesn't look like they go for this kind of stuff anymore. So delivery schema. Delivery schema just built to defeat most used security appliances. So a lot of them are getting like imported lists from open sources or some other companies that are building those lists up. They also know how firewalls work. They also know how any other security appliance work. So to defeat that, one of the reasons, like to defeat that plus antivirus, they use something that looks like pseudo dark leech. That's how we called it, which is not a server level infection, right? So you don't have a server that your payload calls and like, hey, I exploited machine, give me the bad stuff. No, the bad stuff actually resides as a PHP code on the PHP file. So it fetched iframe. It fetched the iframes through the iframe on the fly from a remote server, and that's where all these ad companies are playing for the bad guys, because most of the ads are in the iframes or they are banners. Second is the redirect. Before, like as I said, like if they would just register a bunch of domains, okay, the popularity check can see that, oh, it's unknown domain, and suddenly it's getting like 10,000 queries an hour. Oh, that's probably bad. So they implement, and that was used with no IP calls. But DNS shadowing is different. DNS shadowing looks like you have the initial domain that have its history, it has its popularity, but it has a compromised DNS record. So the bad guy go into the DNS settings, add another subdomain that would reside on totally different IP, but for the security plans, it still looks like it's just a subdomain of the well-known domain, so it's probably legit, and why not let the user go there? So, and you can see that on the screen. So the first part is probably some kind of generating algorithm. And the second part is the actual domain that got compromised. And recently we've seen that this schema changing again, because we already find out what domain shadowing is, and a lot of people start care about their DNS records. And they start building in the iframes that during the redirect just looks like the form of those sites. Again, for most of security appliances, it looks like you are not leaving the same domain. You're just going to the forum part of it. Again, the web filters got defeated by that. So that just more in details how the delivery and exploitation works. So first, you go to a well-known site, let's say CNN.com. CNN.com have an ad on it from well-known huge company that's been around for 10 years. But that company participating in ad hopping, and at the moment when you visit that site, they don't have companies advertising. They have some malicious advertising. For security appliances, everything looks fine. IP reputation is great. Why they would block contain? Using Google shortened URLs, ad networks, and fake, even without participating in ad hopping, just pure malicious advertising on the page, you got the initial redirect. That initial redirect can be also SSL encrypted, which would, like most of the appliances cannot man in the middle SSL traffic, or it would be one of those PHP codes that use on-the-fly encoding. Second, that's the start of the exploitation of your machine. The first payload would just check what kind of software you have on your PC, if that PC is a virtual machine, and if it has a certain IP or language. So they wouldn't target anything that have Russian. That's a pretty good sign that they probably live in Russia. They wouldn't target any IPs that are located in third world countries. Why? Well, because people there probably wouldn't pay $500 for their files. They probably don't make that much money in a couple months. And when the person who is targeted gets that, they are redirected to the actual to the second step in the exploitation chain. It would be either a compromised website or domain shadowing. So because of using domain shadowing, the web filters are falling apart and let you be redirected. Flash file delivered on your machine and penetrating it and see if you actually have anything that it can exploit. Or if you have everything patched, everything is fine, you are not getting the next step in the exploitation chain, you save. This is good and bad. Good, because like if you are not vulnerable, you don't even know that you've been attacked. If you're vulnerable, you're done. So then you hit the landing page, again web filter failed, web address is not blocked, payload delivered, which is usually ransomware, either encrypted or highly obfuscated, antivirus is failing here, negotiation is going on your PC. Again, for the antivirus, the encryption by itself doesn't look malicious. Tons of regular software on your PC uses encryptions all the time. So how antivirus would know that this is encryption that you don't have control of? There is no way, especially with the fileless malware, I will break it down in details a little further. There is like no evidence left. Even if you know that you've been targeted and you know that you've been exploited, for forensic guy who would come, he would check your entire system and he would say, hey, you don't have anything, right? That's very clever on their side that they implemented. So when the data encrypted, malware will usually check for any local backups, so it wouldn't be easy for you to just restore your data. If it would find them, it would delete it and then display the ransom notes. So at this point, for you as an end user and you don't have any kind of remote secured backup, you're done. Like, there is no way to get your data back. You have to pay. However, if you listen to the FBI or any other enforcement, they said, oh, don't pay ransom. But it's again up to you. Some people would let it go, but most people really care about all their stuff that they have on their PCs, pictures, text, some job files maybe. So that's how fileless ransomware works. When the payload locates exploitable process that already reside in the memory, it will inject the first payload in it. That process have to call load library. When the load library called, it forces the DLL to load in the context of the process. So no matter what it would be, it would have at least user privileges. And user privileges is enough to encrypt stuff. So when the DLL is injected, it loads remote DLL. That DLL never resides on your PC. It's a payload that fetched through the PHP file on the fly. When encryption finished, the memory is free because we don't need persistence. Most of the malware want to be in your system all the time, and that's why you can find it. However, in some cases, it's really, really challenging. With ransomware, it already did all the nasty job. It just freed the memory, removed anything it can drop. You don't even know how it's happened. Money flow. As it was reported by Talos, average, I think it was just the one server that way they actually located. It was managing 147 proxy servers, delivering payloads to about 90,000 users a day. But not all of those users were actually exploited, because some of them stopped that infection at some point of the chain, right? But at the average, the amount of money they made a year was about $35 million. That's a huge amount of money. If you look at it as just the cash, usually it breaks down to all techniques. All techniques include the process of legalizing those bitcoins. Main ways are carding, shopping underground, exchange, and money mules. With the underground exchange, one of the actors behind Angler used to have the Bitcoin exchanged, and he would put that exchange to the people to buy Bitcoins who are affected with ransomware, which looked like an ideal schema, right? You deliver the ransom, the people have to buy Bitcoins, they go to your server, they give you cash, you give them the Bitcoins that go straight back to you. However, he took it down almost immediately after the black hole takedown. So who knows why, but now they have to use all older techniques. They also have to spend money on the infrastructure. There are losses of money on any step, either it would be carding, shopping, or underground exchange. The exchange rates are pretty wild. For the PayPal account with $5,000, you have to pay about 17 Bitcoins, which is, I think one Bitcoin is like $500. So that's, you're losing a lot of money. For the people behind that, there is no sense to do that all the time. However, the end loss is about 50%. And that's why they will keep doing what they're doing. 50% is roughly 17 million after the thwart is roughly. They might make more or less, but they wouldn't go away. That's just ideal business for people who live somewhere where FBI can get them. So what we do in OpenDNS to stop that? First of all, most of the ransomware have been delivered through the domains, or at least we've seen. It's very, very rare you see the payload that would have a hard-coded IP. And we deal with DNS data. As I've told, like, we deal about 100 billion requests a day. So we can analyze big data, looking for patterns, and to see how compromised, dedicated, and like domain shadowing infrastructure different in traffic flow between them. We use something that is prank, which is when you look at DNS queries, we look at them at the sound wave. So you have the low part, and then suddenly a lot of traffic start coming in, so you have a wave. That might be one of the indicators, but it's not exactly clear, because a lot of domains getting those waves just because they're launching like ad campaign, or they got like simple, like super popular article that got tagged like by some guy on their Twitter. So we have to mix it with other techniques. We used to do a lot of honeypots. Now we're trying to, one of our researchers is doing something like, it's not like passive honeypot, it's active honeypot. So it wouldn't just sit in the network, it would also go for payloads by itself. And we've seen that sometimes from the same compromised domain, you got different payloads. They are slightly different, but they always ransomware. So pivoting around those domains, let us discover what the compromised registrant emails might be. So we can block some of that stuff that might be compromised later ahead of the time. It raises some issues with people not understanding how that works and screaming and crying that they didn't do anything bad but lost their domain registrant email. They don't think it's bad. So after analyzing that, I use investigate. Also, we use visual graphical analysis, which I would show a little later. So that's how it looks in investigate. So you have the domain that had no traffic at all, and suddenly it got like 400 queries an hour. That raises a flag, and then there is a human who can analyze it. So this particular domain is the part of the initial infrastructure. For the non-native Russian speaker, it doesn't make any sense, but I speak Russian, and I can see that this is the name in Russian, just transliterated in English alphabet. So if you translate it, there would be head of the hippopotamus. That one of the one of the reasons why malware people don't want to use something like that. Because as soon as I see the pattern, I can build a regex. I can look for anything that match this kind of stuff and block it ahead of the time, or just flag it for review. So breaking down the email that this domain was registered to is another dedicated email, because it's not stolen. Again, has the same pattern. It's Russian words transliterating in English alphabet. If we pivot down there, you see that it doesn't have just one. It have multiple domains, and this actually live actor. It got new domains popping up almost every day, just because it sees getting to the block list, and he keeps doing more and more and more. The top part, right here, those are the authoritative servers, and they are mapped to the orderboxdns.com, which was highly abused by many of the malware people for a long time. Unfortunately, the way they provide their service doesn't give them the way to stop or to identify malware actors right away. And right down there, we see that they built a bigger network based on those couple domains they registered. They're just adding a couple letters ahead, and that's it. So if we look at that ASN, we see that currently we see just one malicious domain, but most of the domains that would be registered on that ASN and would matching those two patterns. So either registered by one of the actors' email, another actor is right down here. If it registered by this guy or this guy, and it matches one of these patterns, we can block it right away. But those are dedicated and abuse servers, and those are dedicated accounts that used for multiple scams. This guy, Valera, which might be his name, has couple advertising companies registered with the same email. So we can see it's not something compromised, he actually deepened them. Second part is the one that we got from our active honeypot. So you can see here that it looks like domain shadowing right away. It has the first word that doesn't mean anything, then have a legit domain underneath. This domain hosted on that IP. But if we take a look on just the second level domain, it have the way different IP. If we look who registered that, we can see that there are a lot other domains that use the same registrant email, and this is a good indicator that those domains can be compromised. Most of the time, what we've seen, they are moving their attacking infrastructure from domain to domain. It takes them about 5 to 3 days. And if we block this ahead of the time, even if they're not malicious right now, they might be malicious 3 or 5 days later. And down there is a bulletproof hosting Russian ASN that hosts a lot of these domain shadowing domains. So using Investigate and our infrastructure, we can get the seed no matter from where. Would it be a threat grid, malware, VirusTotal, honeypot, and we can pivot around that seed to find out the bigger infrastructure and the bigger indicators of compromise. So for the last 90 days, those are the highly abused, and they have the biggest amount of malicious domains that delivering Angler. If you look at this one, you can see that it located in Ukraine, and it have really weird name, which looks like the name of one of the guy who actually probably pretty close to the actors or to the authors of that exploit kit. And I want to just show.
You're at about 20 minutes left.
Sure. That's Investigate. That's what we used, and you can see I already looked it up. And that this guy, his ASN, isn't that big, but before it didn't have his name. However, he changed it a little bit, and the amount of bad websites is like 95%. So some of the domains that are hosted there are just not live. I think if they would be live, the malicious domains on this particular ASN would be around 100%. Okay, so I would like to actually. So one of the software that we use to analyze big data is OpenGravity. You can access it at opengravity.com, and I would like to show you a demo how do we use it. So let's start. With OpenGraffiti, you can analyze any data set that comes in a JSON format. For the domains that I analyzed, for the IPs I analyzed, I took the data from but I built the data set and mapped all the IPs to the ASNs. And let's see how it looks if we open it. So these are all the IPs that are associated with Angular. You see there are some nodes that are connected and mapped to the ASNs, and some nodes are not. So to make it just less or more understandable, I try to remove all that stuff and draw a nice picture of highly abused ASNs. Okay, so all the isolated nodes are gone, and we can see, so just let's add some colors. Yeah, so OpenGraffiti is an ongoing project, and it has some bugs. And this is the last presentation, and it didn't broke. Yeah, sorry for that. Sometimes it's happening with live demonstrations. So let's talk about prevention. Keep the data that is valuable for you backed up all the time, please. You don't want to pay $500 just for something you already have, right? For the companies, at this point, you have to implement at least one DNS controller. What it would be, it's up to you, but with the ransomware, most of it can be stopped at the DNS level. Of course, if you use layered security, it's way better, just because the exploit chain can be broken at any time, and it would stop your PC from ransomware. Patch management, it's very important, and people say that over and over and over, but as you can see, yes, that's really important. If the vulnerability is already disclosed, the bad guys would make it profitable in less than 3 days. So if you think that it can wait, no, it's not. And user education. With ransomware, it's really hard, just because for the average user, like most of the affected websites were CNN.com, the Angular was delivered by the ad banners in the Skype that's built in your OS now. It's really, really hard for end user to not get, like, not become a victim. However, some basic education should be implemented. What user can do, like some of the, at this point, ransomware wasn't spreading all over the network, but with the SendSam and with Loki that start encrypts all the network shares, it's becoming more and more important for the end user to know what to do in these cases. Because We've been doing the incident report where they got the Loki on one PC and the guy was just staring at it, not knowing what to do. He reported an hour later. In an hour, the entire network was compromised and the Loki encrypted everything it can get to. But if it will be immediate reaction, it might be stopped to like 2 or 3 machines, and the price for the ransomware wouldn't be $17,000, but it would be just $500. For summary, as we can see, the organizations responsible for particular exploit kit, but there are like, it's just one exploit kit. There are nuclear exploit kit, there are neutrino, they all shifting toward the ransomware. I've seen the most recent Talos log about nuclear kit. It's delivering pure ransomware now, it doesn't deliver anything else. And it will stay here. As a result, they are always ahead of us. They always have something new for us to fight with. The amount of users that impacted is huge. Findings point out to the the criminal organization that works at the scale of a big company. To monetize that amount of bitcoins that they gather, they have to have a really, really good chain of cashing that out. And that chain couldn't be just simple and consist of 1, 2, or 3 people. There are probably hundreds of people involved in it. With almost 40% of the users hitting Angler being compromised, that's a pretty bad threat. 40% is a lot. If we can break it down to like 1, 2, or 3%, that might be not big. We might not talk about that anymore, but I don't see that happen any soon. The security applications do not quickly recognize ransomware because, as I've mentioned before, for the antivirus solution or any other solution, it doesn't know if you control that encrypting that's going on right now or not. And the details are not known to the majority of us, just because if it happened to some big company, it doesn't need to be disclosed as it needs to be with breaches. So when companies got hit with that, that might just pay ransom and didn't notify anybody. And those bad guys will do it over and over and over, and who knows if they wouldn't come back to your company. So for the forensic people, it's hard too, because if you don't have the incident response and nobody called you, you can't just get any data, or even when you have the chance to get data, they already gone. And I think that's it.
This is probably a very nice question, I'm sorry if it is. But my understanding is that when you get infected with the ransom, it deletes all your backups and encrypts what's left. Then if you pay the money, then it'll decrypt. So is there a way in the operating system level to detect and basically block encryption software?
I don't know about encryption software, but you can use some kind of vaccines. So for example, with the most recent ransomware as Loki, it checks certain keys in the registry as language, for example. So if you have that setting already set to like Russian, for example, you are safe because it wouldn't encrypt anything. So, but to break the actual encryption process, I don't think there is any kind of solution. Another problem is that because the code is injected on the fly, there are not that many solutions that can like monitor the integrity of your memory. So yeah, other ways to stop it than just to go for like small parts like registry keys or something else. There is not a good solution at this point. And this is just for one family of ransomware. Like other families using other techniques, and it's really hard to analyze them. Yes?
To what extent do you think the process of that these guys go through in setting up the domain shadows is automated?
Now it is, yeah.
It is?
Pretty much, because like we can see that at least the shadow domains are using some kind of generating algorithms, and it's been around for a while, but never been used just for that case.
Okay.
And they're getting away from that just because that anything that can be generated would have a seed. It's just a matter of time and a matter of data we can gather to get that seed. But as soon as we discover the seed, we can search for the patterns and block those shadows right away. Yes?
So with the ransomware that you've seen, the encryption process, like how is it doing like file selection, for example, or like how long does it take to actually perform the encryption?
So to perform the encryption depends on how many files do you have.
Right.
For targets, it usually have the target extensions in the malware. From my experience, to encrypt 30 gigabytes of data, it takes about 15 seconds. So, and it also depends how fast is your machine. I'm pretty sure you will get, like the servers in when the SAMSAM happened to the hospital, their entire network got encrypted in less than an hour. Okay, thank you.